welcome to another Fight of the Night review, the series I do on my YouTube channel here, this silly little YouTube channel, where I try and remember as much of the best fight of the night as I can. In this case, we're at the AT&T Center in San Antonio, Texas. Got the Wikipedia page open so I don't fuck that up. And it's one of the prelim fights, the second one along actually, between CJ Vergara, who is a native of San Antonio and lives there if I remember correctly, versus Daniel Sa Silva / Daniel Lacerda. He changed his name during the... I don't know how it works, because Wikipedia's got him listed as Sa Silva, but for the UFC titling and graphics, he was listed as Daniel Lacerda. So I'm just going to call him Lacerda anyway, because that's what the UFC officially calls him, as I go through this fight round by round, bit by bit, and try and remember as much as I can. So let's go. We start, obviously, with round one. Neither man touch gloves, but, you know, there's still a healthy respect for them. Well, between them, rather, and they both start throwing leg kicks. Neither of them are really landing anything major, they're just filling each other out. I would say that Daniel probably lands the most important shot of the fight pretty early on, because he does land a pretty good right. He does go for a good couple of 1-2 combos. CJ is throwing his own combos quite well. But the most telling moment is roughly around the 3-minute mark, where Daniel swings a massive spinning back kick. He'd gone for it a couple of times, but hadn't connected. But he lands one that clips CJ right in the temple. And throughout almost the entirety of round one, from that point, it is just CJ running away and getting the crap beat out of him. He's hit nastily, obviously, with that spinning head kick. And Daniel is on him on the cage, lands some really good punches. As CJ is running away, Daniel lands some really good leg kicks, almost knock CJ down. There's a moment where CJ escapes another exchange and he's running away again, but he slips and falls on his front, and that looks bad, but no, he's still fine. And he is, you know, when he does get to a more comfortable position, he does try to swing back at Daniel, but Daniel's the one definitely in control in round one, just closing in on him with really good combos, landing some good boxing that CJ, to his credit, is blocking quite well, but Daniel does find a way to sort of break through CJ's guards, lands much heavier shots from that point. Surprisingly, the fight doesn't end in round one. I'm clearly giving it to Lacerda, because holy hell, like, once he started landing that big spinning back kick, there was pretty much no stopping him. He was kind of gassed maybe near the end, but yeah, his combos were just much more on point. And he obviously had the bigger moment, because it's for almost an entire 3 minutes. It was just him beating the absolute piss out of poor old CJ. And the crowd, who were super behind CJ for this, were not really big fans of seeing their local hero get murdered in front of them. But he did make it to round two, so let's talk about round two. At the beginning of round two, you can see that Daniel is clearly tapped out. He used up a lot of his energy just trying to finish CJ in round one. So in round two, CJ is landing something that he sort of landed quite well in round one, which was the body kick. He lands some really good ones in round two. And there's a moment pretty early in round two where, Daniel is almost getting some stuff off, but CJ's mostly in control. He's the one very much controlling the pace, even though he was the one who was clearly... he clearly lost round one, but his confidence wasn't shattered in round two, and he started landing some really good stuff, and actually clips Daniel with some really good punches. Daniel does shoot for a desperation takedown. I forgot to mention that Daniel did get a takedown in round one as well, and went for a rear naked choke that CJ was able to escape, which popped the crowd big time, because CJ managed to get out of it, but still. But yeah, in round two, Daniel shoots for more of a desperation takedown. CJ kind of avoids it, but Daniel manages to turn it into a calf slicer, which is a very rare submission. There's only been, if the commentary is indeed correct, 2 calf slicer submissions in UFC history. I know one of them is by Charles Oliveira. I have to look up who the other one was done by. But yeah, he goes for the sort of calf slicer position, but it's not the easiest submission to grab, because CJ still sort of met it on top of him and turns around and just starts beating the crap out of him, starts landing some really good punches, and from then on, CJ really starts winning the fight. He's mostly on top in sort of like a reverse man position in a weird way, which sounds a bit too sexy, but, you know, bear with me. CJ lands some really good shots from his position. He's able to turn around, get his leg through from the calf slicer, and almost gets an arm triangle on Daniel, but Daniel manages to turn around and sort of escape. However, it's not as super big escape as CJ is still on him. He lands some good bunny knees, he lands some good slicey sort of elbows, and some really good punches, and eventually he gets the sort of side back mount, and lands a few more punches with about 56 seconds, roughly a minute or so left in round two. CJ gets the finish by TKO, so now we have to talk about it. So first of all, I'm a big fan of a hometown hero getting a huge win, and CJ absolutely fit that role wonderfully. From where he was in round 1, by the end of round 1, to being able to win round 2, just by being patient and not going in like he was kind of doing in round 1, he was able to slow himself down, and he knew he was losing round 1. He knew he hadn't won it at all. So for him to be as patient as he was, to wait for the perfect opportunity, even though he was caught in a couple of nasty situations, he was able to turn it around, get the mount on Daniel, and knock him. Well, I was going to say knock him out. It didn't knock him out. It was just, a TKO finish, ground pound, class 12 finish. However, I don't think the fight will be in my top 10. Don't get me wrong, it's nice to have fight nights in front of actual crowds, or UFC on ESPN in this case. I don't know if fight nights really count. It's nice to have them in front of actual crowds, especially if they're passionate crowds behind their hometown hero, which is, something you could say for a lot and when it comes to American crowds, but hearing these people get so fully behind CJ, who, again, lives in San Antonio, was just very heartwarming. I think that's probably my favourite part of the fight. The fight itself was pretty fun, mostly, had a very good ending. Very good sort of storybook thing. I do feel like, and this is me being pedantic and picky, so come from me all you want, I feel like the fight could have been more even between the two, because, Daniel definitely had all of round 1, and CJ finished it in round 2, but it really felt like it was a back and forth thing. It was still a very fun fight, and it's definitely one I recommend you go watch, mostly for the crowd reactions to CJ, and not just surviving round 1, but getting the win in round 2. The crowd pop when Jason Herzog stepped in to call the fight after CJ had won is an absolutely heartwarming thing, so watch it for that, if anything else. Just watch it for the crowd. It's a really goddamn good crowd. And that'll do it from me. Next will probably be a Music of the Week episode on Thursday. It's going to be another 6 albums, spoiler alert. Tonight I might try and play more Ori and the Blind Forest. I don't think I've got a lot of game to go, but I want to try and get as much done as I can, and I might try and get a top 10 list up some point this week. I don't really know. With the dog and everything, it's difficult to really stick to a specific schedule, but I'll try and do what I can. So I'll see you all pretty much on Thursday, and possibly tonight as well. So I'll see you for whatever the hell's next, basically. As always, thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye bye.